Hello, beautiful people. I am Oliver Perrin for Semiagog, and tonight I'll be talking about the election, as well as a few other things. Oh, hell, I need my notes, though. Shit. Hang on, 10 seconds, and I will be right back. I just have to get my notes. All right, a regular elder moment there. Let me do what I can to take care of that. I need my elder vitamin drink, which should help me along quite a bit. Okay, how is the audio and how is the video? Please let me know, ladies and gentlemen. Please do let me know. Standing by for an indication. Minoan says fine. Excellent. A+. Good. You're probably going to get a little bit of fan noise in the background, but we'll see what we can do about just sort of battling forward, endeavoring to persevere nevertheless. Okay. Please do follow this channel, Semiagog, as well as A Safer Space. Please do that on YouTube as well as on BitChute. I understand BitChute has improved its search features. I haven't yet had a chance to verify that for myself, but it is a promising sign. I'll go ahead and hope, dream that at this point, the major problems have been taken care of. We'll see. You can also follow my channel or me on Twitter, on Minds, on Gab, on Parler. There's both GoFundMe and Subscribestar for those who wish to support the channel. And yeah, you can reach me at semiagog@protonmail.com. And let me see if I have my post office box address around here. It is post office box address PO Box 160006, Atlanta, Georgia 30316. Please send me only things that are legal and moral. All right. Someone here in the chat says, Oliver, this is from XFan420 Bush. Oliver, did you see that thread on 4chan last night debunking your book Vinculum? I'm not sure how anyone would go about debunking a work of fiction, but no, I didn't see it. Shoot me a link, but in the comments, not in the chat, and I'll take a look. Zed Des in the house, very nice. Mad Merc in the house, hello, sir. Glad to see you here. I suppose there's some other folks roaming about. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to mention folding money. Folding money. Tim would be upset if I were not to mention folding money. So what am I going to talk about here tonight? I'm going to talk a bit about the election. I'm going to talk about a few sort of odds and ends. One of them is this business of settling versus settling down. I was just thinking of this the other day because I was hearing the expression "don't settle," and just by coincidence, I happened on some other thing, a movie or I don't know, somewhere online or something, I heard about settling down, and I thought, don't settle and settle down. That's something I just want to give a bit more thought to. It looks like the expression settle down in reference to, the expression settle for that we would get with don't settle dates from the 40s. I pulled this up here. Settle, come to rest. Old English settlan, cause to sit, place, put, from settle, seat. See settle, noun. Related settling, compared to German siedlen, Ziedeln? Anyway, and then there's the sense reconcile, quarrel or differences, perhaps influenced by Middle English satlan, to reconcile, from Old English sat, reconciliation, from Old Norse sat, reconciliation, to settle down, become content, is from 1853, transitive sense from the 1520s, as what married couples do in establishing domesticity from 1718. And to settle for, meaning content oneself with, is from 1943. That's pretty close to the current year, isn't it? And then you have the noun sense, which goes all the way back to the Proto-Indo-European root sed, to sit. So like saddle and the rest, it ties in with my little series of paintings. Sed for saddle and seat and siege. Yeah, a seat, stall, position, abode, and that brings in cathedra for the cathedral chair or a chairperson taking a seat. So don't settle. This seems like a neat way to encapsulate in a phrase a whole tradition, a burgeoning tradition, only recently become one, of course, of never sitting down in one place and claiming anything as your own. Someone who never settles is a wanderer. We used to take people like gypsies and other wandering groups and force them to settle down and to be associated with a place. But these days, no, quite the contrary. No one is supposed to settle down. Don't settle. Don't take up a seat or a place for oneself. A coincidence? Two sides of a coin? I cannot say. Anyway, so that's one of these little odds and ends that I had in mind that I wanted to talk about. But there will be a central gist to this. Basically, I'm going to talk about what I think is going on with the election at this point, my sort of snapshot view of it. And I will probably talk a little bit about the post office, just as something rather interesting to me that we're probably going to be hearing more about as a result of all the fuss that's up in the air about the election and the rest. So you can think of it as sort of tangentially related, tangentially. You understand where I'm coming from. So yeah, and then we'll go into some Ask Me Anything stuff. Perhaps we'll do something where I speak for around the first hour and then interact more and take some questions. Perhaps I'll even take some questions related to this first bit that I am going to be talking about, and that is how I see the election at present. First off, Academic Agent, whose channel I highly recommend, did a clip this evening, a sort of, midnight his time, unexpected review of some facts and figures relating to early voting, mail-in voting, that sort of thing going on in the U.S. And he looked at, swing states. And it's an interesting clip. I would recommend, anybody who has the time, go check it out. I think it's a good analysis. It's probably good analysis in part because he is looking from the outside. And he's got a good, head for digging into figures and the rest and, looking for evidence, revealed preferences, as he says. Anyway, I wanted to come at it from a different direction. And because here on this channel, ladies and gentlemen, we specialize in speculation. My view of all of this is going to be highly speculative. Let us say that my view of all of this, my consideration of it, is going mostly to have to do with tinfoil hat sorts of things or great game sorts of things. So yes, you've been warned. It's speculation. There's the other one that I was looking for. That's it. There we go. So how do we start this? Well, I was talking to a friend of mine a few days ago, and he was choking on the black pill. There was a horrible gagging, gurgling sound that came out of his mouth as he explained to me why this is an entirely, hopeless cause. There's no way that Trump can win. And one of the things that he brought up, I don't want to say it was as simple as saying because commies, but he pointed out how compromised our intelligence services seem to be. And he pointed out that commies of various stripes, or you could say those who pull the strings on commies, depending on how you want to, as Tim would say, slice this puppy up, what great intelligence services, a lot of these commie organizations have had, whether, state associated or just, secret society, secret squirrel type shit. And, how inept and bumbling we've been for so long, Harry Hopkins in the White House and all the great new stuff that came through with FDR or what happened with LBJ. in the middle of the 60s. Or, how long everybody has been getting screwed by the Clintons, swapped out as sort of an inversion, but still somehow tending in the same general direction always, what we saw with the Bush family coming in, shrub elder, shrub younger, as Tim refers to them. So his big thing was basically saying, look, man, these are hardcore, relentless, ruthless people who are more than willing to play a long game. And I said, yeah, one example that stands out to me is the commies. Let's just call them commies for now, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, everything here is speculative. All of this is speculative. It is nothing but speculation, sheer, unadulterated, unmixed, and unalloyed speculation. But these commies, let us call them speculatively, they always want to win. They want to win in terms, I've got an echo going here in the background. Let me turn this clip off over here on Twitter. They want to win in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And if they can't win in the short and medium term because they play a long game, they're always happy if they have to focus on the long term, because they understand that in the end, they will unite all under heaven. They will help us to do better. They will help us achieve the Great Reset, the Green New Deal, the global flowering of equity, right? So if they're going to lose in the short term and in the medium term, they'll aim for the long term. And I think that a part of that informs, they'll be trying for the other things as well, mind you. But I think that informs part of their strategy with California. So I told my friend, I was like, what's going on with all the crap with this strange staged voting? You can imagine, for example, that it's just they think California is in play too. Perhaps something could happen with California. I tend to highly doubt it. And I think what they're actually doing there is making sure that they get an enormous amount of fraudulent, this is all speculation, ballots in there, so that they are then able to hammer Trump about not having won the popular vote again. And they will use that to, provide steam for their engine so they can chew forward into the future, basically dismantling the Electoral College. And so that's an example of how they play long term. And I was agreeing with my friend. Yeah, they play long term. They're clever. They're sneaky, right? But he kept talking about, if the country accepts all of this, ultimately they deserve it, right? You democracy, even a democratic vote in a constitutional republic, to some extent, it's true. It's always true that you get what you deserve. And he kept talking about that, how stupid people are. We were talking about the Biden thing, and he was like, there's no way, that no one's going to pick it up as a story. It's going to be buried. No one's going to be able to touch it. I'm like, the snowball rolls downhill, grasshopper. And as the snowball rolls downhill, it gathers more snow and becomes larger, becomes more of a threat. And there's a certain point at which, beyond which, some shit cannot be ignored. Now, I will grant you, there's a lot that we're waiting for the other shoe to drop on, not least among them Epstein. But in the midst of all of this, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I can agree with the idea that a lot of people are stupid, though I'm trying to overcome my middle class snotty faced bullshit, the middle class snobbery that no one understands, that only we few understand, which is so middle class. I've talked about it before. I won't go into it. So I didn't want to come at him in just that direction and talk about, how, people can be dumb. Maybe this will happen. Oh my God, how many people have been ruined already, spoiled, useful idiots, whatever you want to call them. And I brought up how it's not all about, for example, having, the voting public go for you, because elections can be fixed, and they it's not that they can only be fixed in one direction. So he jumped in and he said, yeah, but our intelligence services are so compromised. So who could do that on a national scale and help to make that happen? Especially if any move that you made through the traditional channels for doing that, some covert operations, some insulated, isolated groups of people who were set to help with that, anything anybody tried to do in that respect would be sniffed out. It'd be caught. It's one thing to try to do it in a sneaky way when you have the institution for you and working together. But when you can't even be sure who to trust within the 3-letter agencies, then, how far is this going to get? And I said, well, my friend, weren't you just talking earlier about how, these, other regimes around the world have shown themselves to be so capable? I said, surely you can imagine that the Russian intelligence services are probably fairly capable. I wouldn't say that they are probably as good as the United States in terms of just sucking out huge volumes of information and parsing it, black glass window data centers and, and in or near Virginia, this kind of thing. But you'd have to bet that in terms of intelligence agencies and in terms of resources and longstanding, historical traditional skill that they've built over a long time, networks of influence, burrowing beneath the surface for a long time in order to be able to, keep their finger on the web or their ear to the rail on the railroad to know what's coming. The Russians have to qualify in some respects. And I grant you, they're probably not the equivalent of what they were in, say, the Cold War, when you had a lot of people who came from interesting backgrounds, in the 60s period. And the United States has probably fallen to a certain, in some ways, in terms of its abilities, in terms of human intelligence and the skill of individual operators, maybe, let's say. But the Russians have got to be a significant intelligence force. Another one that I thought about is, Israel is famous for having a capable intelligence force. Now, there's probably a good bit of exaggeration in that. And there certainly have been some big stinky messes that they haven't been able to keep themselves out of. But if you were going to put together a top 10 list of capability, top 10 nation entities, countries that can field intelligence operatives and undertake big projects and things, the Russians and the Israelis are certainly in the top 10. And that's probably not being selective enough about it. So you think, well, would it be possible that the Russians would want to help Trump? I wonder. Would it be possible that the Israelis and Russia, Israel as well, let's just take it as accepted, as granted, that we're not talking about monolithic entities. I'm not saying that, Israel is all locked in one direction and that there aren't competing groups and power blocks there. I think it's very clear that there are. Likewise, Russia has, things. It's always this weird thing of herding cats, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on how much you want to embrace the superficial appearance of being a democratic entity. So here you have two intelligence services that I think a strong argument could be made would be very much interested in seeing Trump come through. Like if you just take a look at Russia, it was under Obama's watch, which is the same thing as Clinton's watch, which is the same thing as Trudeau and Merkel's watch, blue commies, the same thing as China's watch. Not that these, not that there's any one leader. I'm not saying it's all China. I'm certainly not saying it's all the EU, because they're still dependent on other entities, for example, in the absence of a military and the rest, right? But basically, when whoever it is that's behind Biden had power, Russia kept getting screwed. You saw Ukraine peeled away, and they had to, initiate their sort of secondary strategy, which is just to keep the bare minimum of territory that they require in order to maintain their defensive integrity, if you will. So you've heard me talk about it before. Transnistria, right there by Moldova and Ukraine. Crimea, obviously they took. That's old Sevastopol. That has to do with the Black Sea Fleet and security sort of along the underbelly there south of the northern Black Sea littoral. You've got Abkhazia, which was a major coup for Putin because the Adige Abkhaz Caucasians, the Vainakh and Avars and all the rest, they've had real problems in large part with Russia forever. And for Russia to be welcomed back to Abkhazia as a sort of protector in the face of the aggression of the Georgians, that's a big deal. That's a major coup. Anyway, I'm getting way too off down this thing. Russia activated its little territorial regions that it can control. So you've got them with a footprint in Armenia. You've got them taking South Ossetia, the Georgian military highway going into Georgia. You've got them sticking with Transnistria, Crimea, and Abkhazia that I've talked about. And what's been happening? Meanwhile, you've got lots of money going into Azerbaijan. You had a whole bunch of money that went into Georgia to peel it off way back when. All of that got sort of frozen again when Abkhazia and South Ossetia got activated to kind of freeze Armenia was sort of freezing with its Nagorno-Karabakh take in the middle of the Ganja Valley. in Azerbaijan, or just south of the Ganja Valley ish in Azerbaijan, they kind of froze up that one corridor. As I think Guy from Vermont pointed out, he was the one who was pointing at the Ganja Valley. I'd reached many of the conclusions myself, but that valley is well known as sort of a corridor where you can go south of Russia. Well, now they're trying to punch a hole through that, which means Russia's concerned. It wants to make sure that doesn't happen. Well, all I'm trying to point out is that consistently for quite some time now, Russia has been catching it in the neck under the previous administration. And I'll add also that China has obviously poured lots of energy, as well as some other groups, into trying to make sure that the United States and Russia do not cooperate, which is why it's always Russia, Russia, woof, 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 Russia, 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 because in a tripartite sort of arrangement with China, Russia, and the United States, leave India out for now because it's not quite there. You've got a situation where if any two decide to cooperate, then the other one left out is screwed. Particularly so in the case of China, because China is such a manufacturer, it requires raw materials, and let's not leave aside energy and food when they have things like their grain production being screwed by flooding and all the rest. So you have a situation where China in particular would be hurt if the other two parties ganged up. More so than, for example, if China and Russia ganged up against the United States. The U.S. still is overwhelmingly dominant with the Navy. The problem for China is, remember, it's got supply lines running, and it's desperate to have those not be cut. And what happens if Russia and the U.S. come in together? Russia controls all that land territory, the Eurasian landmass. So look at like Mackinder's heartland theory, the core area of the globe, the biggest sort of landmass, Eurasia. Russia controls the majority of that, either directly or indirectly, and would be able to cut off a lot of China's overland trade, particularly if India got all pissy too. And it's weird, India just seems to be getting pissy too. And the United States, of course, has the Navy. So the vast majority of the Eurasian landmass would, well, let's not say would be hostile, but could be made hostile for China. And at the same time, the U.S. has control of the seas. And look at the U.K., which looks like it's peeling off from the EU, and it just launched a carrier group. And it's got another one coming out within the next year or so, I think, maybe 2 years at most. I think maybe 2022. Yeah, a more aggressive stance there. So China is the one that would be threatened by the U.S. and Russia cooperating. And so it's been trying hard to make sure it doesn't happen. So I think there are a lot of reasons why I think Russia would be supportive of Trump coming in, which means you've got a big behind the scenes player that has considerable covert operation capability that would want to support it. So let's jump over to Israel. Here's another example of the same sort of thing. I don't know Israeli politics well, so if anybody does and knows it better than me, correct me. I'll be perfectly happy to hear it. I'm not claiming any kind of authority, but from what I can tell, an enormous amount of money and effort has gone into Israel to try to unseat Netanyahu, who has just been getting, a special prize after special prize from the U.S. The U.S. put the embassy in Jerusalem. It recognized Israeli control over the Golan Heights, which, I mean, at this point, with what Syria has dealt with, that's pretty much you're done. Obviously, the U.S. is supporting the Eastern Mediterranean energy development, or else Egypt wouldn't have come on board with Israel. And now Lebanon looks like it's coming on board, right? So there are a whole bunch of people in Israel who want to see that development happen and to make money. And I think that is something that would sort of make moot a lot of the offers that China could otherwise make to them. I'm not sure. But clearly with this Benny Gantz guy and the attempt to lay the corruption stuff in on Netanyahu, and I'm not arguing one way or another if it's true, it probably is. With all politicians, I'll assume they're crooked. Crooked as a dog's hind leg. And for purposes of our discussion, I care not one little bit. So anyway, Israel is not a monolith with one sort of direction. But I think there is a strong argument to be made that if you had to look at somebody like Gantz and you had to look at somebody like Netanyahu and their respective power coalitions, that the one who has a better grip on the intelligence services is going to be Netanyahu. Now, again, I don't know that much about Israel, But what it points out to me is that both Putin and Netanyahu know that their bread is going to be buttered better if Trump comes through. So that means that despite whatever money the EU and the behind the scenes Clinton people, or Clinton crew, the broader group, might be dumping into all of this, all the Chinese energy and effort going into this. You've got two capable other intelligence services besides the U.S. one. And while the U.S. one is probably somewhat compromised, I would say that there are still things that can be done there. So there are a lot of ways that the vote can be won in the United States that don't just involve people doing the right thing democratically and showing good sense. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen it in the past. I'm convinced there are any number of instances in the 2018 election where the Democrats took the House because of a lot of crooked shit. So you have the idea that there are other intelligence services behind it, can make all kinds of interesting things happen. Interesting things that Tim and I have talked about for quite some time as being possible. Some are his ideas, some far fewer were my ideas. And then there are a few where he suggested it and I agreed with him completely. Like, we're wrong about the Jeff Sessions thing. It sure does appear that way now. It also looks like we were entirely wrong about Trump pulling a lever on anything having to do with Durham before the election. But the way things are ramping up with Joe Biden, I think that there are all kinds of surprises that can still drop. There's still plenty of time. We're just now coming up on 2 weeks, which means this is the whites of their eyes part. So Durham, I still hold, despite the fact that it now appears nothing is going to happen with that before the election. I still fully believe that there will be indictments and not just of a couple little low-level guys, and that it will be a big deal. But I think there's other stuff that that can happen here. One of them is, how do I start this? Academic Agent, again, I recommend his channel and consider taking his economics course. I've heard a lot of people say some good things about it. He asked a question because, a lot of this Q stuff has been going around. Trump just did his thing with the NBC here recently, the NBC town hall meeting. And Q came up, and Academic Agent was tweeting about it, saying, hey, what's up with Q constantly being talked about? And so there were people hypothesizing. I threw out two possibilities. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. One is that they just want to hammer the conceptual ligature between conspiracy and theory, whack jobs, tinfoil hats, talk about Q, etc. That would explain why a lot of people on the left are willing to take up the whole Q theme right now. But at the same time, it also seems like there are a bunch of people on the right who are perfectly happy to talk about it. They disavow it. But like I saw several episodes of Hannity over the last few days, and he keeps talking about Q, and he's quick to disavow it. I don't even know what it is. Nobody's been able to explain it to me. I think those people are crazy. Well, why do you bring it up? I mean, if I wanted to let the mention of Q stuff go away, then I'd just shut my mouth and let it go away if I were on the right and I were concerned about it. But there's a possibility, and I think that is the whole Q thing is an operation. It is a kind of theater, and we're reaching the climax, which will be followed by the denouement of the whole Q theater move. And the Q theater has to do with global criminal cabals and Satanists, I guess, to some extent, and liberal discussion of things having to do with pedophilia. So that brings us to Epstein, which has been sitting there in the background. No shoe has dropped with that, right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to, but I'll tell you what, if something striking dropped about Epstein before the election, and it could because it wouldn't be considered going after the candidate or whatever. It wouldn't have to go at them directly, right? That's one angle. Or you could save Epstein for later, and you may want to handle it carefully because of all the people who might be implicated if it really did get the lid blown off of it. And like Tim and I have talked about before, doesn't it just make sense to keep the list? Why give it away when you yourself can, make all kinds of great things happen with it? But if you started to get a whole bunch of shit about pedophilia associated with Hunter Biden, And if it were on a hard drive and it involved photographs or other evidence, but, you know, nestled in with plenty of photographs that could look really compromising, that could do wonderful things in terms of an October surprise too. So then you have to kind of look at that you go back to the Q thing. Well, why is Q getting brought up? Well, maybe we're coming to the theatrical revelation of Q. And if that is the case, it would make a whole lot of sense to me for why Trump would get into an argument with the NBC people, why they'd be stupid enough to fall for it. You know, they could maybe say a few things about Q here and there. I mean, frankly, when YouTube ditched all the Q YouTube channel people like Amazing Polly and some other ones, that is just like a slap in the face to those people. And there are, I mean, I'm not going to get carried away, but there are probably a couple 100,000 of them. And they follow this kind of thing closely. And for that woman on NBC to have come out and said a satanic pedophile rings, you know, and Trump is like, well, you don't know it's not true. And she says, yes, we do know it's not true. And you know it's not true. And he said, no, we don't. We can't trust everything you say. Tell you what, man, if that started to come out, man, beware pulling the pedophilia lever in a way that is meaningful, because there will be a collective response. In fact, it is one of the few things that I think there's much of any sort of latent explosive energy left in our collective regarding. And so that is another one. And it's just Biden and Ukraine stuff. There's a whole other side of it. I don't want to get into it because I'm still thinking it through, but Turkey is being particularly crazy, just seemingly desperate. It's got a flailing kind of feeling about it. Oh yeah, I should mention just on the pedophilia thing, the thing that's come up, I think I saw it on maybe Sunday Morning Futures this morning or something. But anyway, there's scuttlebutt going around about it elsewhere, and that is the idea that somebody who signed a warrant for, God, I want to say warrant. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but there's so much shit goes in and out of my brain in the course of a day, looking at all these blazing screens and getting my monitor tan. Somebody who's in the government, I believe, is a prosecutor or a attorney general of some kind, or a U.S. attorney, I can't remember, has requested either Joe Biden's laptop or information related to it. Somebody probably knows about this and can mention it in the chat. The person who requested the information is somebody who has thus far been closely associated with child abuse and pedophilia, child sexual abuse, that kind of thing, investigations of this sort. So that's another little teaser about the Hunter thing. And see, you could almost get an evocation of Epstein and a big satisfactory like cherry on top for a bunch of Q people, which will, you know, galvanize them and get a whole new set of narratives going. You don't necessarily have to go to Epstein directly. You could just touch children and power and corruption. So there are a lot of surprises that can drop. This is another thing. So intelligence services, surprises that could come through. Oh, that's what I was talking about. Ukraine and Turkey and how they're flailing around. Sorry, I'll get this one out quick, but it's just another one because Biden's associated with Ukraine. And there was a web page that went up on a YouTube channel that went up sometime back, and it was kind of something called Something Leaks, and it sounded like a Slavic name. It was coming out of Ukraine. And it was purportedly things that had to do with corruption. This is all speculation, ladies and gentlemen, with Biden and the former Clinton administration and people going over to the Ukraine. And it was called Something Leaks. And it had a little spigot icon. And coming out of the little spigot was yellow water. How does that happen? I mean, I'll tell you how I think it happens. When somebody over on quote unquote Trump's side of things decides to say, fuck you, pee tape me getting peed on in a hotel room on a bed, we'll give you something. Guess who's going to piss all over you in return? So let's give this Ukraine Leaks page that sat there for quite some time. I wish I could remember the name. It might well still be up. Maybe somebody knows what it is. But that suggests to me that there's a whole lot that goes back to Ukraine. We know that Ukraine was playing a strong... the territory of Ukraine played host to a number of people, and probably Ukrainian citizens were a part of this to a considerable extent, putting together this whole smear and thing on Trump. So a lot of it goes back to Ukraine. And if I were a bunch of globalist swine who were attempting to, you know, basically rape everything in sight around me like they do in Haiti, I mean, economically, as you know, leave the children out of it. and all these other countries, basically rearranging them and sucking their treasuries dry and forcing weird IMF requirements on them, and basically taking control of their countries and raping them. Ukraine is just a beautiful place to do it. It's got a huge amount of territory. Anunnaki on Twitter was pointing out to me that they've got a whole bunch of native industry, and they handled a good bit of industry for the Russians before it all peeled apart. They've got a big army, more than 1 million people on paper anyway, or did. And it's a big block of territory, and it's got seacoast and everything else. It's just a beautiful place when it's not really under the rule of law, when it's a kind of temporary autonomous zone for scumbags like Soros, scumbags like, the Maidan Revolution had Soros all over it, scumbags like Biden to go in and make money, and people associated with them. So I think there's just a huge, stinking mess of, let's say, bodies hidden in closets in the Ukraine. But there's some other stuff going on with Turkey. I said I'm going to do this fast. I'm sorry. I got a lot to talk about. Let me get through this part. I'm forcing you to go through my thought processes as I reconsider it. I'm not going to get there yet in this discussion, so I'll just give you guys my little placeholders. Basically, Israel and Russia, as I mentioned before, were getting screwed around during the Obama administration. That's why Obama waited on the tarmac and wasn't seen. And Netanyahu was like, screw you, you're being nice to the Iranians, right? The Russians were having a real problem with them. They tried their great reset. They said, well, we'll get back to you later, after the election. Tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility. Those people were getting screwed over. So you had the business with Syria. You had the business with the Ukraine. Basically, the Syrian civil war starts with the Arab Spring stuff. Russia stays out of it. Then you have the Euromaidan revolution and this whole chunk of territory that's not Russian territory, but it's historically within their sphere of influence big time. I mean, I know the Ukrainians will argue. I'm not taking a side on it. I'm just saying historically, if I had to guess, Russians are not going to be happy about further incursions, pushing right up to their border, especially what's happening in the Baltic, Romania, etc. So they're pissed. So after the Euromaidan, then Putin decides to go and rain down his influence upon Syria and change the status quo there. Only after. And then what happens? Only after Russia really comes in, does somebody pull a lever on Turkey and get them to come in? And they start making fusses with Russia. You have a Russian jet shot down. We're told we have clashes. I certainly know that the Turks are backing the groups in Idlib, and the Russians are helping the Syrians to contain them. The Turks keep trying to push down that coast. Anyway, the important thing is that Russia only came into the Arab Spring stuff after sort of they'd had their back pushed against the wall. They're going to need something to negotiate with regarding some resolution for the Ukraine. So they got Transnistria, they got Abkhazia, they got Ukraine, and they took the Eastern industrial regions, Donetsk and Luhansk or whatever, the Donbass. Then they roll down to Syria and they're like, all right, if I want you to give me something, I got to convince you that you're buying it from me. I've learned that in legal negotiations. If you ever get involved in a lawsuit, no one's going to give you anything unless they feel that they're paying you to get something they want, even if that thing is just peace of mind, right? I want this to be over, pay him so he goes away, right? This kind of thing. Russia comes in and says, I'm going to force myself to have a seat at the table by inserting myself into this conflict. Somebody pulls a lever to have Turkey go after Russia. Something is going on here with the powers that be, probably the blue commies, probably with some role played by China, definitely with like the EU power brokers and Brussels bureaucrats, and the Hillary Clinton types, the George Soros types, that loose coalition of powers that was pushing to remake the world with Arab Spring and with its Ukrainian stuff. I think there's a lot that's going to go back to Ukraine, and probably some stuff that's going to go back to Turkey. So that's how I have to wrap this part. I brought up Turkey in the first place because they recently signed a defensive cooperation treaty with Ukraine. And Ukraine is apparently going to be providing them with maybe engines that will be used in more or less advanced Turkish drones. So Turkey and Ukraine are in the midst of a big cooperation. That's strange. I wonder if there's any single country that would probably be more pissed off about that than any other group of countries or single country. I wonder if that would be Russia. I think probably so. Yeah. So I think that there's going to be stuff that comes out about Biden, but it's going to be tied to Ukraine, and that we're going to see a bigger sort of globalist mess, and that Turkey's going to play a role in it somehow. And I think that Ukraine and Turkey in particular are two countries that were basically being used as cat's paws by the previous power players who are now being pushed out. And there's going to come a day of reckoning for both the Ukraine and for Turkey that is something that they're so concerned about. They know they're going to be so fucked, if you'll excuse my French, that they're pushed into desperation. Now, I think something's going on with that too. And whether that comes before the election, probably not. But it means that as those players, maybe in Turkey, because there's Reza Zarrab and all kinds of other shit, the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, there's all kinds of other stuff that could come up, pop its head up from Turkey. But definitely, as people get more and more desperate in Ukraine, a lot of them are going to try to find a way to swim rather than sink, and that means turning over information. This could all tie to Biden, and certainly to Biden's power group. Anyway, we've got that covered. The last thing I want to mention, it's two last things about this. Maybe we'll skip the post office part. How long have I been going? It's only 40 minutes. Another thing I want to bring up about the upcoming election and whether or not to this broader meta thing I've been discussing since the beginning. I was talking to my friend on the phone. He said, there's no way Trump can win. And I said, yeah, he could. And my friend was black-pilled. So he said, no, the people are such idiots. It's how they vote. And I said, it's not necessarily how they vote, because elections get fixed. And you will admit that it can go in either direction, right? He said, yeah, but the intelligence services. I'm like, well, Russia and Israel would probably be very willing to help because their asses are on the line too. There's some other things, though. The surprises I just mentioned, Epstein, Durham is probably going to come later. It looks like I was wrong about that. Looks like Tim was wrong about that in the sense of when the shoe would drop. But there's another thing, which is coalitions. And I heard this brought up on, I think, on a clip on American Thought Leaders. I'm not positive, but it's quite a good discussion. The basic idea is that you historically had a really strong power block associated with manufacturing. And they were based in Europe. They started in Europe. That's how they built their names. Think about, the automotive manufacturing in the U.S., which is just one that's sort of been clinging on. But there was much more. I mean, think about all the big names, Westinghouse and Ford, and there are tons of them. And when you mention them, they almost sound like early 20th century or 19th century, because that's now how we think. We've exported so much of our manufacturing abroad. But I mean, think about a name like Krupp's in Germany. These are not just manufacturing for cars and things, but they're like military equipment. Now, certain areas that, got a juicy little piece for themselves have managed to claim and defend territory in the military industrial complex. So it's not like, Raytheon or JPL or Boeing, Lockheed Martin or whatever. It's not like they're going to get knocked out, but they are feeling the crunch. There are other people trying to sell shit globally in terms of weapons. But the people who really got hit are the other big manufacturers who couldn't carve out a juicy little sinecure for themselves, so to speak. And in the beginning, I think they were willing to sign on, and they were willing to do their thing because they were getting a big juicy piece out of it too by turning over a lot of that manufacturing to China, right? So basically what happened, everybody knows this, they split up different areas of the globe that would handle different things. And China got handed this big piece, probably just to help build their economy, push their communism, create a third pole to allow other gambits to be arranged, that kind of thing. But these different industrial powers probably signed on because they just made a whole shitload of money. Oh, you're telling me that I can cut my labor costs in half, if not a whole lot more, right? Yeah, there's more shipping and stuff. There might be a little bit of time delay, but when you work it out on paper here, I end up with a whole lot more money. I get super rich. Well, there's a certain time limit on that because China, I mean, first off, you talk about easy indicators where the laboring unit, a person in China gets more and more expensive. Other people go to India, they go to Vietnam, they go to Indonesia, whatever. So on one hand, it's not as cheap to do it there anymore. But the other thing is you've got the intellectual property theft and the weird kind of strong arm pressure tactics that the Chinese use. And, as As the cuckoo in the nest gets bigger and bigger, there comes a point where it doesn't matter whether or not there are other offspring. It just pushes them out. And at a certain point, it's almost as though the cuckoo can eat the very bird that's been feeding it, because it's gotten so huge. And China's coming up on that, if they haven't arrived there quite long ago. And they're making a naked, stark dash for the finish line that entails them just during that last phase saying, no, fuck you. You ain't got to like it. We're going to do it here. And you don't get the same kind of money you thought. And you know what? Half this money that's kept in our banks isn't yours anyway, because we're gonna play games with it. You don't get to have it. Try to take it out of China and see what happens. Try to take this manufacturing know-how out. It's ours now. Fuck you. So anyway, the point is that you had a power class that was a manufacturing base. They went along with it for some time with China, but things are changing. And so you have an enormously powerful group in aggregate globally, if you pull them all together, who have all kinds of high-end corporate manufacturing experience. People like Carlos Ghosn, right? You have, big manufacturing people like the Tata Group in India, or, God knows the European and American groups, but they were kind of bought off because they got good money out of the Chinese arrangement, but now they can see the writing on the wall. So this person on American Thought Leaders suggested. I'm dolling this up much more than they did. Basically, all they said is that you have the finance power group and the manufacturing power group. And that formerly the manufacturing power group kind of got what it wanted, enough to just shut up about it and make money hand over fist without making a fuss. But now they see the writing on the wall. Then you have the finance power group, your Wall Street, whatever, City of London, Hong Kong. And for them, it doesn't matter as much where they are. They're purely Soros people. They're playing with phantasms of phantasms of phantasms. They're indexes that are pegged to a fiat currency or some sort of formula between one fiat currency and another with some time limitation that yields an index that causes them to make X amount of. It's all fucking smoke and mirrors. It's just a massive game where if anything is earned, they're constantly chiseling it off the side and people don't even notice it and they get rich in the process. But they do not require a territory. They need networks, and to some extent they're physically based, but they have no interest in countries the way, for example, a manufacturing group does, or did up till recently, and is beginning to think might be important again. So the idea here is that another group that backs Trump. So we're not just sitting here thinking, can Trump beat Biden? The amount of money that Biden raised versus the amount of money that Trump raised, and the fact that these guys control the media over here and these guys control the media, will the voters be smart enough? No, it has to do with power blocks and coalitions and who gives a shit, who is willing to put their asses on the line, whether it's fixing elections, whether it's intelligence operations, whether it's getting dirt on people to bring them down, whether it's being able to put pressure on certain industries to come on board at a critical time, etc. These are the things that matter in the election. Yes, the votes matter too, but anyway, my point is that there's a whole lot more going on. I told you at the beginning, this is not going to be an analysis of people's voting patterns like we saw with Academic Agent. And by the way, as I said, his work on that is good. I recommend his video. This is sheer speculation. So I think we see a lot of things going on with the behind the scenes view of what's likely happening with Trump. And I think that it is worth paying attention to intelligence services like Russia, intelligence services like Israel. The likelihood that Russia and the United States will, after certain things get sorted out here, likely cooperate quite a bit quietly. Libya will probably be one of those places. Syria will probably be one of those places. The coalitions I just mentioned, like manufacturing and finance. There is also this business of surprises. We've still got more than 2 weeks left, a couple days more than 2 weeks. There's so much that could happen between now and then, and I expect it to ramp up and for more explosive shit to come out as we roll up to the last debate between Trump and Biden. So Durham will probably wait. Epstein, maybe they'll pull some lever on that, or maybe they'll just go with echoes of Epstein. Through the dissolute behavior, the dissipated actions of that scion of a noble house, Hunter Biden, asleep with a crack pipe in his mouth. Allegedly. It's all sheer speculation. The last thing I want to cover is what my friend was talking about. He was like, man, I'm telling you, Oliver, this shit is not going to work out because let's call them commies. Let's call them the forces of progress. You can call them them. I don't give a shit. I don't see any single group, as my longtime viewers know. I'm not a big person saying this, just one group. But whoever it is, or whomever they are, as a collective, or as a cooperating group of cats that occasionally get themselves herded together when they're desperate, they have had control for quite some time over the universities, over Hollywood, and over journalism. And, there are good reasons for that. I studied marketing, advertising, and the rest. And it's really, I won't go way into it, but it's kind of shocking how important things like celebrity endorsements are. Celebrity endorsements are just enormously powerful. It goes back to all our old ideas of noble, old Greek word, gignosko, known, nobilitas, nobilis. Those who are known, they serve as sort of, I guess, let's be unspecific. Let's not use technical terminology. They're like a picture in everybody's mind of what you are and how you're supposed to be. Like, it changes. I don't know who the hot new guy is, but once upon a time, it was Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt was the icon of a hot guy, right? And well, what Brad Pitt thought, sexiest man in Esquire magazine, right? Well, shit that's long gone now. But there are icons. There are people who serve as representations, and other people aspire to be like them, and they look at their behavior and they imitate it, because that's how we work as a species, most of us. And so the power of a celebrity is very, very, it's huge. But look at what's happened with all the little things that we've seen with like the Academy Awards. It's a situation where people are less and less interested in hearing what these assholes have to say. It's growing more brittle. As I tried to frame it, it's like out there under the limelights, the hot white light of the stage, the grease paint on their faces is cracking up, and it's almost shattering these brittle, false expressions that we all see. Because just seeing Trump hit back at the host on the NBC thing, you're just sitting there going, "Am I dreaming this? What's going on? Am I actually seeing these assholes this blatantly do it?" And, probably there are plenty of people who don't see it anymore, but I sure as hell do. And I know that there are lots of people who are saying, "Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining." Celebrity stuff is powerful, and yet they're taking hits. Not just the business of the celebrities making asses of themselves, but look at what is happening in terms of Hollywood. They're not working. They're not working right now. I think I mentioned it maybe in one of my live streams. I've certainly mentioned it to friends of mine. The city I live in is like a miniature little movie production area, but it has now a fairly sizable sector for that. And I talked to some people over the last few months who are saying everybody, whether they're production people, line producers, casting, makeup people, all the people down a little bit, below the line, crew, they're not getting work. None. Now, I don't pay for the online movies and the rest, like Netflix or whatever, or HBO, but I've seen, just from looking at what's available on pirate sites, there are no new movies. A few, you'll get ones from other countries or things that just happened to creep across the finish line before everything got locked down with COVID. But like, where's The Walking Dead? Where is it? Where are all these TV programs that we used to watch? Hollywood is catching it in the fucking neck, and we're just getting started. The same thing, look at sports. Maybe people make too much of it, but the NFL has been having problems. And from everything I've heard, the recent games, we've heard about it probably from a few different people, are down, 70% now? They had a whole sequence of these final games, and they just kept dropping every night. Nobody wants to see it. Everybody's sick of it. Hollywood, sports, they'd be taking a hit anyway, even if they weren't being idiots, just because there aren't people in stadiums. There's only a certain amount of this that any of these given sectors can take. Look at journalism. Look at the lack of trust. Look at the newspapers that are shutting down. Take a look at what's going on with the universities. You're going to have a certain number of them, like your Yales and your Harvards, that have endowments where they can live just off the interest of it nicely for quite some time. But those guys aren't the rule. And even they will, to a certain extent, be affected by what's happening now. I mean, the people just not going to school right now. And meanwhile, everybody's been driven online. You know, let's all get together and sing Kumbaya on Zoom, right? That kind of shit is creating a shift. Now, part of it, separate discussion. We won't go there tonight. I'll actually control myself in one respect, but it's how everything's being driven online, and that has certain risks associated with it, because a lot of these bricks and mortar institutions that had stuck around are going to be facing a troubled time, particularly since they thought that this entire process was going to be stewarded through by Hillary Clinton and her people, and they thought wrong. So yeah, think about that. I mean, I talked about intelligence services, Russia and Israel. I talked about coalitions, manufacturing versus finance, and how they're now kind of at each other's throats. It looks like Trump has formed a coalition with the finance people, manufacturing people, and that the finance people are being pushed back, though Trump is throwing them plenty of bones too. He's trying to be a president for everyone. I'm not saying it's as clear cut as that. Yes, he's making all kinds of plays to get them on his side too, because he wants everyone on his side. Except for this particular group that he wants to uproot. We'll see how far he goes with it. I talked about other surprises that can happen pending the election, and I just prior to the election. And I also talked about these institutions, universities, Hollywood, journalism, professional sports. They're in a mess. And, you know, any city that you surround, let's say we've circumvallated a town because we want to capture it, we're going to lay siege to it. They're all of them are up there boasting, like, you know, Reginald Rigidrad, the Milios Gloriosos, the noble warrior fighter, when they've just been surrounded. Wait until they're like boiling shoe leather from their boots and eating rats. And it's very likely that they're going to come to some sort of understanding in their mind. Maybe we should negotiate it, right? So all these things to me suggest that Trump is going to win, and that things are better than most people think. But, you know, here, this is the moment. Let's see. Shit can go wrong too. I know that Trump is speculation, ladies and gentlemen. Trump is worried about some shit. Because, I mean, there was one of these recent rallies. I've watched most of his rallies, and there was one he was doing here where a jet went overhead, and you saw him kind of turn around and look, and he was like, oh, it's an F-35. You can't see it. You know that motherfucker knows at this point that rockets come out of the air and kill your ass like that. And yeah, I think he's on high alert. Everybody's on high alert. I think that's one of the reasons why he's constantly talking about how great Mike Pence is, to ensure that if some shit were to happen, then, you know, people would sort of fall in behind Mike Pence because, you know, contingency plans have been put in place. So, you know, God forbid, I don't think, you know, Trump is the be all end all, but he's a hell of a lot better than the alternative. So let's hope that he gets through this in one piece. Because at present, I think he is winning. Which brings me to another thing I wanted to kind of cover here. I think I'm going to skip the post office part because this has gone on quite some time. I'm just going to throw this last part out about Trump's. How you want some shrimp? You want shrimp salad? Trump's metaphor about winning. I want to cover that, but I'll skip the business of talking about the post office for the time being. Maybe save that for another discussion. One thing I noticed is that, how do I frame this? Let me frame it so it seems less disjointed. Let me make clear the ligature between the previous topic and this one. I was talking about how I think it looks better with Trump and these things that are going on in the background other than poll numbers and all the rest. I think another basic way to look at this is just look at the metaphor that Trump has chosen to communicate with and through. And then we can compare that to the metaphor that's on offer as the alternative from the blue commies. Trump is all about winning, right? I think what has happened here is that Trump has correctly framed the psychological gambit here. Like he says, do you remember he famously said to black voters, what the hell do you have to lose? You know, what the hell do you have to lose? What that says is making a bet. The metaphor, the fundamental metaphor is to gamble, but to win big. And I think that is fundamental to Trump's approach, right? And I just talked about the way in which the sports, the whole thing with the NFL and the NBA and the rest, and how people have expressed disgust with sports and the rest. I think that has a secondary kind of consequence, right? A lot of people are into sports and they get into fantasy football and the rest. I don't understand it completely. I'm not into that shit. If you are, good for you. But these are people who are no longer in a position to get their fix as regards sports because they're disgusted by what's going on. But where do those people go? I think they go to Nate Silver. I think they go to 270 to win. I think they go to Real Clear Politics polls. And I think in a certain sense that Trump's knack for reality TV and his having come up through reality TV as an ineluctable fact, right? We know that that's how he came up. He cut his teeth there. He knows how to work a kind of Jerry Springer magic that simplifies how everybody sees everything and to get them interested and involved. I mean, I didn't realize it back when Bush the younger came into office. I remember watching him on TV and I was like, who the fuck is this idiot? Like, he's an imbecile. And Trump is not. But Bush the younger is as close to an imbecile as you can be and still be somewhat functional. Sorry, if there are people who like him, I can't help you. And I thought to myself, this guy is a fucking idiot. Like, he's speaking English wrong and all these other things. Remember, I told you I was a lefty snob. Not a lefty, but I was a middle-class snob who grew up because of the middle-class vibe with all kinds of sets of assumptions. I mean, I was different. I went to different places. I've always been into the Second Amendment. But I was snotty about it. I was like, how could they possibly know anything? They don't read Shakespeare. They don't know anything about anything. Well, I was wrong. And I realized it at the time. I had a specific moment where I was like, man, I really get it. Every time I thought the entire country would back off of Bush the younger because of what an idiot he sounded like. And you saw the condescending stuff from the Democrats who were like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Could I get another glass of Prosecco? Oh my God. This guy is so stupid. The rest of the country was like, fuck you. We like him because he sounds stupid. How about that? Fuck you. And I think that goes for Trump in spades. And those same people, deprived of their sports, deprived of their ability to bet or to pay attention to who's on this card and, how many yards so-and-so can run or what somebody's batting average is or how well they shoot or whatever you call all those sports ball things. They're now turning to the elections, and the elections are turning into the great contest that everyone tracks. It's not the Final Four for such and such, it's the elections. And I think that fits with the idea of making a bet. Like Trump says, there are winners and losers. You keep on winning, right? Or he's like, they're losers. That loser got killed. Winners and losers. What do you have to lose? Make a bet on me. And we even see it with betting odds now being discussed. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they got discussed a little bit. But I'm hearing a whole lot more about betting odds on the election than I ever did. I mean, again, maybe I missed something. Somebody jump in who's older and wiser and has been paying attention to politics for longer. But I don't remember betting being as big a thing in any other elections I can remember prior to Trump. And I don't remember, odds out of Las Vegas or, London bookies being discussed, bet makers, bookkeepers, whatever the fuck you want to call them. So I see a kind of a set winning, right? Winning. It's like an indoor sport. We're also locked in. We can't go to games and the rest because of COVID. So Trump has a message and it's about gamble on me and win, alpha male, Dana White and UFC. All of this is kind of coming together for Trump as the fundamental metaphor. And that's all. This is a straightforward fucking human thing. How hard is it for the vast majority of human beings on the planet to understand that the boxer who fell down is the loser and the one who's still standing at the end is the winner? How hard is it to explain to them which one they probably want to be, which one do they want to get behind, right? This is where you have dueling narratives. And Trump's is just consistently, it's a psychology of business, of return on investment, of attracting investment. It comes from him as a businessman, but it's been made accessible to everyone because Trump has learned through doing The Apprentice and his reality TV shit how to tune it to just the right level that everybody can get it. I'm not one of those people, as you know. I'm not a person who tunes my shit so that everybody can get it. In some ways, I wish I could. For whatever reason, I'm stuck where I am. Trump does not have my issues. That's probably why. It's certainly why he has vast amounts of money and I don't, because he's made what he's doing comprehensible and accessible to the largest number of people. And I think the mythic framework, the archetypal framework for what he has on offer is straightforward. There are winners and losers. Which one do you want to be? Make a bet on me. What do you have to lose? We're going to keep on winning, winning, winning. Well, what stands against this, to wrap this up? And then we can go to Ask Me Anything. We're about an hour through this. As I said, I'll skip the business about the post office that I was considering doing. What do we have in response? We have the shit that comes out of, that gets churned out of the great puking Play-Doh fun factory of commie crap in the sky. Do better. Do better. You've got to do better. We'll get together and together we'll do better. Or build back better. We'll build back better. And then once we build back better, we'll do better. Equity, equity, do better. Equity, racist, equity, do better. Which one calls out to you? I mean, there's only a certain extent to which a kind of simpering sentimentality and a kind of like pants wetting fear, there's only a certain extent to which people want to be a part of that story. There's no mythic nature to it. There's no achievement. There's no heroism. There's just pissed in pants. That's what's on offer. Do better. Do better. We've got to do better. Let's build back better. Do better. Be better. Well, I expected better of you. Do better. Sorry. I don't see it. And the constant refrain, it's like a chorus of frogs. Do better. I don't see the one which has all the makings of heroic struggle and achievement, and even women get it. I mean, they don't necessarily, there are lots of athletic women and they'll want to go do, track and field or whatever. There are a lot of competitive women. I had a Crimean Tatar descended girlfriend in Turkey who basically cut my throat, just loved to bet on backgammon. Tavla. There are lots of competitive women. They get that metaphor. And even the ones that don't, they understand picking the wrong person and losing because of it, because that's the social calculus. Who am I going to suck up to in this group? Who am I? Oh, what a lovely necklace, Linda. It's so great to see you. You and John should come see us sometime. Oh, honey, we're leaving their house. I've got to get the thank you note finished before we get done out the driveway. I know we just left, but I want to get it into the mailbox before we're gone so we can say thank you, right? Oh, I always wanted to decorate as a young woman. I wanted to throw parties and decorate supper club. Oh my God. Women get that. They get the whole thing of choosing the person. It's like, Mean Girls and Popular Girl. They get it. Even if they don't always necessarily want to go so far as to like drink the testosterone milkshake and be the champion. Yeah, I am the champion. They definitely don't want to be a fucking loser. And they can smell when someone's about to lose, and they don't want that loser shit jumping on them. They do not want it. A certain category of them. Yes, a certain number of them are going to cut their boobs off and take male hormones or get purple hair. But we're talking about the vast majority of females. They pay attention to sort of the mood of the room. And they know that the girl over there in the corner with the fucking Kool-Aid mustache and the shit stains on her ass and the flies buzzing around her is not someone you want to hang out with. It's the whole reason that they gather together in little gaggles of the pretty girls, because they begin to exert an attraction on the males in the zone greater than the sum of its parts. Anyway, I'm getting too far into this. The point is that both men and women understand the notion of winners and losers. And when we look at these narratives, one of them is do better, be better, build back better, better, better. And the other one is, do you want to win? We're going to win. I'm going to fight for you. All the other phrases and expressions he's used, it seems pretty clear to me, are comprehensible to people in a way that's meaningful to them, that gives them a sense of Sturm und Drang, right? Some shit's going to happen, right? I want to be a part of something. Now, a certain number of them are going to be ninnies and pussies and the rest, but I think overall, given the messaging, given his performance in the last election, and all these other things that I mentioned, I think you're going to see Trump come out well ahead. I'm very, very confident that he is going to win, and I'm fairly confident he's going to win more than he did last time. Let's just say that. But if you want to get into the details of who's voting and how and what the prospects are, I really recommend AA's clip. Everything that I just discussed is only speculation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to share with you my books to shill them, because I realize I didn't do that at the outset. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to ask you guys to, for example, throw things in that you think give the lie to what I just asserted. If you believe that Trump is he's fucked, there's no way he can win, well, challenge me and I'll attempt to respond. Additionally, you can go ahead and ask me any sort of other questions you have, and I will begin to take them. The only problem is, I gotta see if there's some way for me to change how I'm signed in over here. Let me see if I can fix this over here. I'm sorry, I'm doing this, ladies and gentlemen, because I have multiple accounts over here. There we go. Let me move over to this account, and hopefully then it will give me the little orange thing. I need to be able to see @Semiagog stand out, put an @Semiagog on it so that I will be able to see it. And hopefully then, let me try it now. I was logged in onto the other one. I want the @Semiagog part to stand out. And it has not done it thus far. Anyway, get your questions ready and put an @Semiagog in front of it. And meanwhile, I'm going to try to change over here to another one. Come on, bitches. Yes, now I should be on the right one. So now let me try. If not, I will just, sorry, but it's only going to take me a minute to try to straighten this out. If I can't, I'll just work it out anyway. Just put like all caps Semiagog. But hang on, let me see if I can get this to work. If I pull up over here, the problem is that the StreamYard's chat doesn't highlight @Semiagog, and that means I have to parse all the questions and I miss many. Let me just get down here. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this will not take forever. I swear to God that soon I will make this work. Let me try to do pop-out chat and see if it works now. Now it's pop-out chat, yeah. And? No, it still has me as the wrong name. So you know what? Fuck it. Sorry, peoples. Just put a capital, all caps, Semiagog. All caps, Semiagog. And then just put your question afterwards, and I'll try and make it work there. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is challenging. All right, I'm coming back around. Get your questions ready while I shill my books. Okay. Yeah, wunderbar. This is my first book. It is called The Vinculum, and it is a strange sort of dystopian book, a story set in a dystopian future. And it's about a book thief in 2076 in Istanbul, you can find it on Amazon. It is called Oliver Perren. You see Oliver Perren? There it is. You can find it on Amazon. Please buy the book. And Cinders from the Bloomery of Youth. This is my collection of poetry. It's 3 copies of my collection of poetry. Can you imagine that? Cinders from the Bloomery of Youth. An excellent set of poems by Oliver Timkenperrin. You've got the Timken in there. That is part of my German background. You can partially German background, many other backgrounds too, as I am American Mart. You can find this on Amazon under Oliver Timkenperrin. Please do check it out. So now I have shielded my books, and now I'm looking for questions. Yeah, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Put a big caps, put it all in semiagog. Otherwise, I won't see the questions. Let me see how far back I can go. Okay, this is how, nope, that's top chat. Let me put live chat here. Okay, all the way back to here. And I'll be looking for questions, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to find them. I'm going to try to answer them. Questions? Kel, semiagog, which country has the hottest tax system and the most effective women? I don't know enough about taxation. So yeah, for tax system, I cannot opine. The most effective women. How do you define that? If you just say, you know, taking into account all the living women in a given country, effective, I could only define as saying that's, you could measure that by the number of women who get what they actually want or something like it. And then you'd have to say whether or not they're aggressively doing it. I would guess that it's East Asia, that it's women in East Asia who just fucking plow right the fuck in and get what they want and put their men to work and get them doing whatever it is. But in terms of the highest level of individual accomplishment on the part of any one woman, I would say it's somewhere in the West, but what do I know? All right. 1234 says, Semiagog, don't underestimate the Trump derangement syndrome. I still suspect that a hell of a lot of people go out and vote against Trump. Yeah, they will, but I think he's going to win. And I think he's going to win by more than he did last time. I think all the business with the rioting and the fires and the talk of packing the Supreme Court and getting rid of the Electoral College, I think it ultimately is going to have an effect, or has, I should say, have an effect. So I'm not discounting it 1, 2, 3, 4, but I do believe that the wind is in the sails of the MAGA movement. And as I said, we're still 2 weeks out. Okay. Semiagog, how disorderly do you think polling day will be? This from Me Too. I think there's going to be more fuss than we normally see. I think we're going to see a lot of people out and a lot of long lines. And there are going to be a lot of people complaining about it in some states. I don't think we're going to see a great deal of voter intimidation or I don't think so. I think law enforcement will be pretty hard on it and everybody will be out. I could be surprised, but I think polling day is not going to be disorderly in the sense that there will be any violence or any major things that fall apart relative to like any other given year. But I do think that you're going to have long lines and dissatisfied people and a lot of talk about that. And, you know, depending on whether or not it serves the defense of entrenched interests, you know, they could probably try to make more out of it than is really there. But I'm not sure. I don't think it will be all that bad. I think what's more likely is that we're going to have upheaval immediately following upon Trump's reelection in a number of cities going on for a week or two. But that's just a guess. Stop White Genocide 14 says, Semi-Agog, are the lockdowns ever going to end? I haven't really been. My state was the first one to open up and didn't even really lock down that heavy in the first place. I mean, maybe there are some out west. Come here, delicious little piece of orange. Maybe there are some out west that had more, that were freer, that were locked down less. But I don't. Come on now, do that. But I don't. My state was never really bad in the first place. I mean, it was always pretty well. It was pretty smooth. So, as far as I'm concerned, the lockdown never really happened for where I am, and yeah. So, I'm not sure what's involved with it ending. Excuse me. I'm just making a mess here, trying to squeeze the last of my apple juice out of my elder drink. Okay. This from El Vaquero 555. Hello, sir. Welcome. Semi-Agog, have you seen the claims that Hunter Biden hard drive? Semi-Agog, have you seen the claims that the Hunter Biden hard drive didn't come from a repair shop, but rather CCP blackmail files via Chinese dissidents getting back at Xi Jinping? Yes, I did. And the first place that I saw those clips, the first date I have seen that's associated with those clips is September 28th. The first one. As a matter of fact, here, I can pull it up. Let me look over here. Sorry, peoples. Let me see here. I got to pick another accent anyway, because I'm not doing a German one well at all today. I will not do a French accent because it is so bad. All right. Maybe Slavic accent. Where is it? Yes, the first version of this that I saw was put out by a Twitter account called Himalaya Global, at Himalaya Global, 25.7K followers, advocate freedom, democracy, rule of law, and whistleblower movement. Follow us at Global Himalaya for Chinese content. So this looks probably like some, I don't know, Christians in action or whatever. Anti-China. Himalaya looks like Free Tibet, but keep the Himalayas free. It looks like an umbrella organization for anti-Chinese content. And it's dated September 28th. Bombshell, 3 hard disk drives of video and dossier of Hunter Biden's connections with the Chinese Communist Party have been sent to Nancy Pelosi and Department of Justice. Big money and sex scandal may come out soon, according to YouTuber Media Lewd at ding_gang. Hashtag where is Hunter? So that's at DING_GANG. So this has been going around for what? Almost just like a day short of 3 weeks. This story has been going around in terms of these 3 hard drives coming out. Now there's more recent stuff, like Academic Agent sent me one saying have a little watch of this, and it's the same clip or a portion of it. Let me see what it's dated. The one he found, and it's the same content. That started going around September 30th. So 28th, 30th, this is all coming out. But what's interesting is I think we now do have 3 hard drives in play. They didn't necessarily come from China, though. As I understand it, one of them is the Hunter Biden drive that came from the computer repairman. And then the other one that I'm aware of out of these 3, I don't know what the third is, but the second is apparently the one. It's not a hard drive, but it's access to emails that got turned over to somebody by the guy who was a part of Hunter Biden's crew but got convicted of something and stuck in jail. So yeah, it's been going on for a while. Whatever it is, and I expect there's going to be more to come. Occupant 9 says, Semi-Agog, have you seen the plan to save the world? And if so, thoughts? I have not. What the fuck is going on? Louis the 17th says, if you are over the age of 10 and still drink juice from a box with a straw, you disgust me, utterly disgust me. I have no idea what that's about. I certainly don't have a straw. Mm. Adherent of Lady Columbia, hello, says Semiagog, thoughts on Nixon? I am increasingly finding myself seeing the man in a positive light in that he knew how to make apparatchiks bend to him. I don't know enough about Nixon. I'm beginning to play a little bit of catch up now, but it's way too early for me to make any kind of observation regarding it. Whoa, Sentinel is in the house. It's been quite some time, sir, or since I've seen a comment from you. Semiagog, entrenched, desperate, deep state holding up the results until Congress decides. Maybe. I think it's not gonna go that far. I think you're gonna see it hit the courts in a number of states or counties or whatever. I think it's gonna be pretty clear. I think they're aiming for this entire process to, if there are gonna be question marks associated with it, it's gonna be on the scale of individual states or regions. Rob Palmer says, Semiagog, what film would you like to review on Guide to Culture if Frody invited you on? Well, I pitched him the idea of looking at Lars von Trier's Dogville, which is hardcore. I've never seen such an overwhelming and cunning indictment of the United States and the type of hypocrisy that's rampant here. It's like it makes your skin crawl to like watch it all happen before your eyes. Dogville by Lars von Trier, but we shall see. Reality is enough. Semiagog, what's your feeling for possible October surprises to come? I covered that in my previous notes. What did I say? I was talking about of Durham waiting until after all the shit goes down with the election, but we've also got it's Epstein. Maybe you'll get some bits about, but you're likely to see some stuff going on with Biden, but much more with the Ukraine and possibly dragging Turkey in as well, if I'm not mistaken. Maître Marc, the swordsman from down under, a kingdom within, a sovereign kingdom within Tasmania. Whose Albanian eagle on his truck I will overlook. It is a two-headed eagle. It is the two-headed eagle of Byzantium, the empire that looks east and west. Maître Marc. If you need fencing lessons and you're willing to cross the border into Markrovia from Tasmania, I recommend Maître Marc. What else do we have here? Vassal Goose says, Crom. Yes, you killed my father. Okay. Whoa, wait a minute. This thing jumped ahead. God, man. Come on now. Now I'm lost. Semiagog, what's your favorite cookie? Well, because I was in love. I was so in love with a woman who was half Turkish and half German. And her family came from Nuremberg and a town nearby there. And I loved a Nürnberger cookie. I just love little Nürnberger cookie. Nürnberger cookies, man. They're good. Oh, they're good. But they have to come from Germany. And they have to be, something close to fresh. All right. Fuck, now I'm all lost now. Where the hell am I? Okay, Maître Marc is pretending to have come up with a question, which means that it's below. Okay, I found there we are. Catching up. Sorry, peoples. This thing refreshes. BDB, hello, by the way, says, Semiagog, thoughts on the off chance that Biden concedes on the night of the election? No. Clinton set the standard for that, but she had nothing coming. She had hoped that somebody was going to be able to pull something out of the Jack in the Box or yank some fucking Deus ex machina out of their asses. So she held off. I think that you pretty much 100% count on, I shouldn't say that. It's almost certain that Biden will not concede. Even if he has nothing, he's going to leave that opening for a grassroots response to build in the darkness of the night as they gather their pitchforks and torches. Even if he's got nothing coming from that, he's going to refuse to concede in order to create the perception that there are questions about it to support what would come next. Because, I mean, we're talking about people who really are going to be out of power and who really are going to go to jail, a number of them. And even if they don't go to jail, they're disgraced, their careers are over, their connections, the connections of their connections. It's going to suck for a lot of people. So, yeah, I don't see Biden conceding on the night of the election. All right, what do we have next? Adherent of Lady of Columbia mentioned Nixon again, but that's probably before I first answered the question. Lance Corporal Veteran, hello, sir. Semigog, people simplify. Civil war could happen. People simplify. Civil war could happen after November 3rd, but history has shown how pre-conflict events lead to a national event. We had a bleeding Kansas. Next 4 years will be our blood Oregon. Maybe. The reality is that once the sort of the most immediate aspects of all of this get curb stomped, money's going to stop flowing because the people paying for it are going to recognize, holy shit, the guy I'm antagonizing right now isn't the guy who might be going out of office in 2 weeks. The guy I'm antagonizing now is the one who's going to be president of the U.S. for 4 years. None of this is grassroots. Not any of it is grassroots. It all has to do with money being paid to motherfuckers. And once it's clear that Trump's got it, they're going to shut the fuck up because this aspect of all of this is done. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some true believers who are like, oh, what happened? But the majority of the power players behind the scenes who are funding this, no. There's always time to talk. I should have brought more apple juice down. Damn me. I'm gonna grab myself just a hair more. We have 30 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. Why shouldn't I? Hang on just 1 second. All right. Let me just refill my apple juice. Hopefully I'm audible to everyone, and we'll get on to the rest of these questions. There we go. Just a bit. Let's not get carried away. All things in moderation, including moderation. Yes. All right. So what do we have here? Matriarch says, Semigog, I've thought of a question. Is Mad Max utopia more likely than a 1984 dystopia? Only the king of Markrovia would refer to the Mad Max scenario as being a utopia. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know how to answer that. All right. Anand says, Semigog, are you familiar with geopolitical analyst Peter Zeihan? God, I got to figure that damn thing out. How was that written? Right. Okay. So the IE is E. EI is I. It's reversed, man. So that would be Zeihan, Peter Zeihan. Are you familiar with geopolitical analyst Peter Zeihan? His global order concept has ties to some of what you've been saying regarding global alliances, manufacturing, and finance centers. No, I don't know him. But absolutely. I mean, I'm just sort of, piddling around here in the backwaters of where I live, looking at shit online. So certainly people who pay attention can reach the same conclusions on their own, and most of them probably much quicker than I do. Yeah. Occupant 9 says, Semigog, have you seen The Plan to Save the World? And if so, thoughts? I am sorry to say I have not seen it. Dispatcher says, Semigog, how do I get that beautiful Deutschland accent? I don't know this Deutschland accent. It depends on where you come from. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm verging into Kermit the Frog here. None of this is my fault. This is not my fault, people. Boomer21, hello, says, Semigog, when you add in the Never Trumpers, those that couldn't vote 2 years ago, plus the mail-in ballots, are Trump voters still ahead? Man, there's so much screwing around going on in there. I don't know. Trump's going to win. Trump's going to win. If he doesn't, it's at least briefly going to get far more exciting, and I will move to the woods. But no, I think Trump is going to win, and neatly. As I said, I expect he will win by a wider margin, a greater margin, by more votes than he did previously. I'm sorry, his electoral college numbers will beat what they were last time, I believe, most likely. Louis the 17th says, Semigog, my question is, did you know the richest man to die on the Titanic, owner of the Waldorf Astoria, John Jacob Astor the fourth, wrote a science fiction novel about traveling to Jupiter in the 1890s? Why, I didn't. Why, Louis the 17th, that's the most fascinating thing anyone has ever told me. No, I did not. I had never known. Who would have imagined that John Jacob Astor the Fourth would have written a science fiction novel? How fascinating. No, I'll check it out though. Hrevion says, Semyagog, do you think Trump's presidency is a project of a wing of the Defense Department? Or is that disinformation? A wing of the Defense Department? No. I mean, if we're talking about manufacturing, as I suggested earlier, being sort of pitted against financial interests because they're being pushed off the board, as I said, the military-industrial complex is doubtless a part of that. So there would be people in the so-called Defense Department. But no, not like a wing of the Defense Department. No, I don't think it's as simple as like a simple hierarchical arrangement whereby someone in control tells this group over here to do this. This is a little bit more mixed than that in terms of the interested parties involved and the coalitions that have formed. All right. Calliope at Night says, Semyagog, I have heard that Kamala Harris, the mouth hole from deep within Willie Brown's knee hole. Kamala. The best meme I ever saw about Kamala Harris was one where they took, what's his name? Who's a Spanish actor with the Javier Bardem with the fucking dunk nose that comes straight out of his dunk forehead, the big jaw, and he's got that fucked up 1970s haircut in No Country for Old Men. They put a picture of Kamala Harris next to Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, and they really fucking look the same. They look the fucking same. In my mind, there is now a perfect ligature. I cannot separate them. Calliope at Night says, Semyagog, I've heard that Kamala Harris's family owned slaves. Was this her white ancestors, black ancestors, or her Indian ancestors? Well, as I understand it, Kamala Harris has a father who's from Jamaica who looks like he's liberally sprinkled with whitey blood. So I don't know. It's doubtless, or most likely, her Jamaican ancestors through her father, who looks like a mixed quote unquote black, and her mother is Indian. So I'm guessing it's through Jamaica, and possibly through her white ancestors, but it's by way of her nominally black father, who's just basically mixed. I want to understand why, like, if you can call somebody black for having 25% black blood, why can't you also call them white? I don't want to get involved in the categorization so much as to say you could just as easily get away with calling Obama white as you could black. I mean, hopefully you understand what I mean. And if you don't, fuck it. Major Mark, Semyagog, Mad Max Utopia or 1984 dystopia? I think I already have been here. Good God. More about Mad Max Utopia and 1984 dystopia. Do you mean, is it more likely that we're going to have like the Ministry of Truth or whatever, and we're never going to know that 2 + 2 = 4, versus are we going to drive around in souped up 1970s muscle cars with like a weird brace on our legs and a sawed off double-barreled shotgun? I think it's probably going to be more towards 1984, but the bandit part of me likes the Mad Max Utopia idea better. Hey, fellers, watch this. Crom 2020. Semigog, thoughts on encroaching tech tyrants? That from H. Grimes. I am interested in looking into that further because I did a fair amount of research over the last 2 years with a couple of companies, one of them quite big, one of them fairly big. In terms of their futures strategies. And a lot of it involved looking into this crap about reskilling and about, whatever the new versions of telecommuting are going to be, and 5G and edge computing, the maker movement, fourth industrial revolution. There's a lot of that I think should be talked about, because I was working in a field where companies asked what they should be doing about that, and I looked into it at length. And what's very, very strange is, of course, all of this stuff is getting pushed very much by the whole business, supposedly, of COVID-19. And I'm not a big believer in coincidences as that goes. But we'll see. I have to find the right group of people to talk to about that. I'd like to get some people who have experience in the field themselves, in various fields that tie to this, whether it be like, IT or the way in which like smart contracts associated with blockchain transactions are going to get rid of like crap cans of lawyers' jobs and crap cans of customs jobs. People involved in freight and logistics, people involved in transaction processing, that kind of thing. But I don't have a good, like, deep bench full of people to call on with different ideas, like, for example, Academic Agent does. So yeah, we'll see. If I can put together the right group of people, then I would be willing to do it. MCT says, Semiagog, what did Senator Tom Cotton mean when he said winter is coming? I didn't see that, but I'm guessing it's probably a Game of Thrones reference. We've got our 700th question from Mitch Remark about Mad Max Utopia or 1984 dystopia. Mitch Remark is after the vanishing return of the 10% response to direct marketing. He's like, you only get a 10% response, so I'm going to ask 10 times, which will guarantee that hopefully one of them will be seen. I see what you did there, Mitch Remark. All right. Semigog, what's your favorite cookie? I already covered that from Zeddez. Zeddez is awesome. It's so nice to have a moderator in the house. Amanda Anderson is in the house too with a moderator wrench. Thank you. Don't piss off Amanda. She's ruthless. She'll fuck your ass up. Dispatcher says Semigog, would voter fraud punished as treason and with execute? Huh? Semiagog, would voter fraud punished as treason and with executions be out of line in our soytopia? I mean, everybody can fantasize about helicopters, but I mean, I won't force you guys to watch me on screen indulging in those sort of fantasies. I'll try to get along to the next question. I appreciate the people who stuck with me. I'm trying to be entertaining. I'm trying to be a proper content creator on YouTube in a very tough, this is a tough room. It's a tough market. It's a tough world. We're being suppressed. We're being shadow banned. Our channels are being crushed by the algorithms. Oh, the algorithms. To grunt and sweat under a weary life. To be or not to be. How does all that go? I'm not going there. All right. Jesus Christ. All right. Major Mark, stop asking about Mad Max Utopia versus 1984 dystopia, or I'm going to block you. Literally, it's like fucking crazy. You're spamming me. Boomer21 says, Semiagog, all of Canada is on lockdown, part of Kanzuk COP movement. I envy the freedom in your state. I guess. I mean, it's not great, but it's better than it could be. Like if I were in some place like, I'm hearing about Australia, like that's just like, what the fuck? Michigan, any of it, California. Yeah, I can't deal with it. Here, as I said, it's not great, but like, it's not a total disconnection with everything having to do with reality. All right. Am I lost here now? Let me double check it against this one. Okay. Yeah. We both arrived roughly at spam. Spam is racism. I don't, some of you motherfuckers are just crazy. Y'all are all just crazy. You realize that, right? You're all fucking crazy. Every one of you motherfuckers are crazy. Kel says, Semiagog, how about the country with the hottest women and the least intrusive government? Hottest women? It's all individual. You can meet a woman from anywhere who just has that fucking thing. But I mean, if we're just gonna, Dutch women on bicycles look fucking good. I'm sorry to say it, no hands on the handlebars, fucking looking at you like you're an idiot because you're walking in the bike lane, just long ass legs. They're all right. Baskets full of flowers, little canals, uitsmutter sandwiches. Yeah, that's cool. Least intrusive government. I don't know if there's anywhere. I mean, can you imagine if I had to say that the US had the least intrusive government? But it might be. The other ones will just, lie about it completely, or nobody ever digs deep enough to reveal what they're actually doing. I don't know. The least intrusive government is measured on a county level, not a country level. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. James Roberts says, Semiagog, do you know anything about Gilgamesh and the Nephilim? No, but there was a chick named somebody Nephilim who just fucking kicked the neo-reactionaries' asses on, or sorta. I mean, she acquitted herself well. She didn't kick their asses, but she did a very good job raising good points on AA's channel. I think it's Emily Nephilim. She did a good job. But yeah, I've never been into Sumeria, Mesopotamia, the Assyrians, the Babylonians. I mean, other than sexagesimal reckoning. Calliope at Night says, Semiagog, high fantasy or science fiction, what is your favorite? That would be high fantasy. There's some good science fiction, and there's even crossover like Changeling by Roger Zelazny, although Mad One's better. But no, high fantasy. Well, no, I wouldn't call it high fantasy unless you're talking about the author being high while he wrote it. Like when I hear high fantasy, I think about Tolkien is the classic high fantasy. And actually, I don't like that much. I like Robert E. Howard or Roger Zelazny or like the Chronicles of Amber or, Conan books, Elric books. Moorcock was my sort of thing when I was reading that once upon a time. I've got something called The Red Lion or The Red Dragon. The person just bitched at me and made me buy it, and I finally got it. So it's sitting next to my bed. I think I'm going to reread Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson first. But I finally have to finish reading Edmund Burke, Reflections on the Revolution in France first. I'm finally getting through my pile because I finished all the Colleen McCullough books on Rome. All right. Questions? Ladies and gentlemen, we have 12 minutes left. Let's make these good questions. I'm going to try to make this last little bit very entertaining for everyone. X-Fan 420 Bush. You've already gotten a question, but you know what? I'm just going to go there and try and help you. Let's see if I can answer this. What's the deal with that Falconer guy talking about UBL and Iran? UBL. Universal Basic Lipstick and Iran. Is any of that stuff legit? Would explain why Israel had to stop Hillary from winning if she was compromised by Iran. I don't know. You got me on that one. I don't know that one. There are so many flavors. There's so many flavors, so many exciting, distinct little side byways, little eddies, little side streams of conspiracy that I don't have the time to track. So sorry, sugar. Boomer 21, Semigog based on no distancing and no masks. Why are they not all dead in Sweden? Because most of it's bullshit, of course. Somebody said, have I read, where'd it go? H. Grimes says, Semigog ever read the Death Gate Cycle? No. Fassel Goose. At Semigog, there is a Mohammed Khashoggi in the Biden emails, China Entrepreneur Club rep. Have you seen anything else on Turks, Saudis, and Burisma, Ukraine? Khashoggi's claim Turkish ancestry. Yeah. Khashoggi is apparently, this is how I read it, Turks, they add a j or a ch at the end to mean like someone who does something with a thing. So Kashuk, Kashukche, Kashuk. God, I can't fucking remember Turkish, man. I've been drinking. Kashukche? How do you say spoon? They make spoon makers. Sorry, I have to check this. Let me go to Turing. Yes, Khashoggi is from Turkish, but it's apparently it's a transformation, a distortion of Kashukchi, as I remember. If this fucking thing would open up. Come on, dirtbag. Shuk. When you drink and you haven't spoken the language, yes, it's a spoon. So Kashukchi. Supposedly, the original Turkish is Kashukchi, and his name is Khashoggi. Khashoggi. Yes, he is of Turkish descent, but I hadn't seen anything about him being otherwise a member of the tribe. I tend to doubt that. It's possible, but I tend to doubt it. Well, no, you know what? I don't doubt anything at this point, but I'd want to see something more solid. I have not seen anything in terms of the Saudis in particular, or even really the Turks. I'm only linking the Turks to Ukraine because of the defense agreements that's been cut and the weird behavior of how Turkish moves seemed to be following closely on the heels of Russian moves, as though somebody had given marching orders to Recep Tayyip Erdogan, telling him to go after the Russians. And yeah, but I haven't seen anything specifically, though it would not surprise me. There's some shit going on with Ukraine that's going to connect to a lot of other places. Again, there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It's out there. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's out there. And I'm telling you that if you simply look, you will see it's going to be slow coming. But you're going to think to yourself, he told me so. What's the next one? Oh, Adnan. That's another Fassel Goose. Universal Basic Long Pig. Yeah. Okay, I think I caught up with where I was. Her. H. Crime, Semigog, thoughts on the slave trade allegory of Curious George? Not familiar. Ogun's Iron says, Semigog, could Carlos Rosen be Cohen? You know, I haven't, they both have Arabic and Hebrew, both have this sort of 3-letter sets, like derese for dars, madrasa, mudares, you know, for like lessons or school or whatever, or, you know, mektub, kitab, kutab. They have the 3-letter things. I haven't looked at Rosen, but I tend to doubt it. And as I recall, I think I'm pretty sure he's a Lebanese Christian. Not to say that it couldn't be Russian nested dolls with a something inside of a something. There's certainly long traditions of it from Tsakia to Conversos, but I don't think so. Kashuk. Sabrina C from fucking Germany is reminding me of Turkish. Kashuk, evet. Kashukçu. Stopwhite Genocide says, Semigog, have you read Pinheads and Patriots by Bill O'Reilly? Inquiring minds want to know. No, I have not. H. Crime says, Semigog, do you think there's truth to the allegations Obama murdered SEAL Team 6? I watched one clip about that where there was a guy standing outside after a conference and making a big show of trying to keep himself, private. I'm not going to say what place I live in. Maybe. I wouldn't put it past any of these people to have done anything. But I don't know. Even if it were true, why would anybody put a major amount of energy behind exposing that when it makes our armed forces look bad at the same time that it makes like the Clinton crew look bad? Like there's so many other places that these people could be attacked for the crooked shit they've done, that I think that even if it were true, I'd throw it out because it makes our special forces look bad. That smells funny. But I don't know. I mean, at this point, fuck, anything could be true. I mean, really, it's insane. All right. Trying to catch up to these last questions here. We have about 5 minutes left, peoples. I want to make sure that we have some good questions. Don Browning. Hello, Field Marshal Don Browning. Says, Semigog, I've been lurking in the veggie patch. Do you grow your own vegetables and herbs? No, my mother, though, does grow. I grow rosemary out in the front yard because, you basically can't kill it once you plant it where I live. So I have rosemary, but no, and my mother grows basil and gives me a good bit of what's left over and a couple of other things, too. No, because I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, and there's no estrogen to like make those things happen. The testosterone soup is too thick in my immediate environment, and so herbs won't grow. That will not stay the same forever, though. Okay. Jesus Christ, SD's in the house. Hello, by the way. Semigog, what mystical experience did Napoleon have in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza in 1798? Well, just wait a moment. I will look here on the outside of this bottle. I don't fucking know, man. I wish I did. Jesus Christ, man. Listen to Spooner. Everybody's getting all over Spooner because of Tim. Jonas Peterson asks about thoughts on Lysander Spooner. I don't know what to tell you. I looked at him briefly because somebody was saying Tim looked like him, but I don't really know anything about it. Mad Merc, the Mad Mercenary, says, Semigog, just a random thought. But is it better to use the word strata instead of class? This way we cannot be tricked by Marxists using similar language. Presumably strata being more abstract and applying, for example, in terms of ethnic strata, economic strata, and the rest, rather than being limited to a strictly economic or cultural sense. Sure, but most people aren't. Class is just as broad a term. You can say a class of person, an economic class. And classification being what it is and applying as it does to biology, it could apply to racial groups too. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, I think. But I'll keep an open mind. Facile Goose comes in with butt stuff, same as Crowley. Somebody's been somebody's been dreaming of Victor Neuberg and the Paris working. Oh. Okay. Do we have any final questions? This is it, people. Oh my God, we have about a minute and a half left. What is going to be the last question that we confront this evening? Tell me, peoples. Do we know? Do we know? What is it going to be? Amanda Anderson says, bullshit, Ollie. Some of the best growers are men. You are just lazy. No, I require the inspiration that comes with the fair sex. That's all. That's all. There are certain things If you don't get it, then your great life wisdom is not equal to mine, because the fact remains, and anybody who's been anywhere and done anything in life knows that there's certain things that men are only motivated to do in the presence of women. Now, there are core things that they'll do anyway. I've got plenty of those of my own. Talk to the hand. Talk to the hand. Shit, where are we? Is this it? We're done? No last questions? God damn. 1234 says, can you do another hour Semigog? No, because I want to finish my drink. I want to have some food, and I want to smoke a cigarette. And Aaron of Lady Columbia says, Semigog, why does Tim think the U.S. is not an empire? It's not quite there. It's not quite there. There are aspects that do overlap with it, but others that don't. Ah, man, somebody with a whole bunch of fucking Cyrillic letters in their name said Semigog best album, metal album of the past few years. I can't help you. So this is it. This is it. This is it. We're wrapping. Unless there's one good question. I want to end on I want it to be good. Here, let me bring, I'm going to close with a cat. Hang on. What are you doing, Dirtbag? Come on. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to close on the cat. You want to see the cat? Come over here. You are a loudmouth, aren't you? Meow. 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 Come in front of me. Come look at these people. Look at this one. Oh. Say hello. Yes. What's up, Fuzz? What's up, Fuzz? All right, ladies, peoples, persons. I am out of here. This has been a wonderful discussion. I appreciate your time. I've got to hurry up and turn this off before this cat sticks its asshole in your faces. So I am Semigog, and I am out.